This
Just for the
conference will
benefit,
now be recorded.
sorry, just for the benefit of the audience, I think there's a little plus and minus signs on the right, which should be able to zoom in if you need to zoom in on anything. But thanks very much, Rob.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I came on a little bit late, so I don't know if there were some problems getting things organised. So sorry for looking a little bit unprofessional there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that introduction, Russell. I must admit, my time up in Scotland is probably certainly one of my highlights of being in on the railway. So I do have very fond thoughts of Scotland and my time up here. So today I'm here to talk about some gauging improvements, as Russell said earlier. I'm Rob Lacey, Principal Engineer in Technical Authority within Network Rail. I lead that gauging function, and it's no longer the professional head of track. It's the National Technical Head track that I work for, Gareth Evans, and I lead the gauging function for him. So I was going to talk a little bit about my background, but Russell's beat me to it. So we'll move on. So in gauging, there's essentially only three things that you need to do, and that makes it look really simple. But in general, you need to make sure that trains don't hit the infrastructure. You need to make sure that trains don't hit other trains, and you need to make sure that passengers can on and off board trains as safely as possible. There's also the issue of making sure people don't stick their heads out of windows as well, but not truly, in my opinion, a gauging issue. So when it's only three aspects to gauging that we need to manage, and when it's sort of ostensibly really simple, how do we make it so difficult at times? And that's probably part of answering some of the questions that we've got. So we have a stated capability. It's in the sectional appendix. It basically says which trains are passed to move along specific routes, and what classes of trains and what indeed gauges of trains are allowed to move in particular routes. That's been built up over time. Some of that is from historical grandfather rights, and from a time when gauging was largely done with polystyrene blocks and or statically straight off drawings from manufacturers, and some rudimentary modelling done around it. It's really moved on in the last 20 or so years, and probably in the last 5 or 10 years, it's moved on a massive amount, and I'll try and explain that later. So how do we maintain our stated capability? And in truth, I would say we manage it fairly badly. We do, however, where we do manage it, we manage it in three different ways. So we manage it through renewals, and where we put designs to meet the requirements set out by the RAM or the asset owner, and within requirements documents, you basically design the track to meet those requirements. So if you have aspirations for a larger gauge, you will build that into your requirements documents, and the design teams will endeavour to deliver that to you. And sort of by stealth, renewals, where gauge has drifted over time, where it's not been necessarily maintained, renewals can restore that gauge, and indeed they can improve that gauge where you're looking for improvements within the system. Also, you've got train introductions. So much to the annoyance often of train operating companies and train manufacturers, the onus of train introduction, or the onus is on the introducer. So if a train is introduced, any requirements that or any changes that are required on the infrastructure to make them fit, it's the train introducer that meets that bill. So over the last 5 years, and this control period in particular, there's been a massive increase in new rolling stock all over the country. And in fact, if a lot of gauge that possibly has been lost in time, over time, has been reintroduced by a train introduction. And like I say, some of that is probably not necessarily that they've introduced larger trains. It's some of that is also that as Network Rail, we may not have allowed or may have allowed the gauge to drift over time. And then third is maintenance. So we have maintenance teams, and we're supposed to maintain the gauge as well as the track geometry and all the other aspects of maintaining a safe railway. In truth, that doesn't happen as well as we would like it to, and that's probably at the expense of renewals, and it's probably at the expense of train introduction, because maintenance are probably in that triumvirate of things that we do to maintain our stated capability. Maintenance are probably not quite pulling their weight. It's not their fault. It's quite possibly a lot of it is my fault, because we haven't given the maintenance fraternity some of the tools, or the right tools, to do the job. And I'll go on to explain why. So on top of that, there's a number of specific challenges, one of which is around Scotland. So the Scottish government have set out a high-level output specification, or HLOS, and one of their requirements is they essentially want a go anywhere gauge. So they wish to have any locomotive or passenger rolling stock that's capable of running on a particular line, being able to run anywhere else on the Scottish network that could accommodate it. So for instance, any overhead line or any train that's powered through overhead line traction needs to be able to go anywhere that ScotRail may wish it to go, and likewise with diesels, and likewise with the charter trains that frequent the Scottish Railway so often. There's also a big challenge now, a new challenge around COVID-19, and the fact that passenger numbers have absolutely dropped through the floor, and the railway is looking for opportunities to save money for obvious reasons, because we're hemorrhaging money just now for the government, and certainly determinations for the coming years will be much lower. So there's a big challenge there for not only for Scotland, but for the whole of the UK, as to how we move forward with gauging, or any part of the railway maintenance and renewal, and how do we afford to do it. So out of that triumvirate of ways that we maintain gauge on the network, what is it in particular that's stopping maintenance? So is it the gauging standards? Are they not right? Have we not trained people that correctly and how to do designs and tamping? Is it money? Is it we've got the wrong plant, or is it the railway group standards, or is it lack of access? In truth, it's a number of those things, and I'll go on to explain some of those ways that we're helping to helping maintenance. So in the previous slide, I was talking about the challenges. They essentially turn into 3 questions. So how do we assist maintenance in doing their bit? And I'll go on to that very shortly to maintain the published gauge. How do we meet the challenge to get essentially a go anywhere gauge as required by the high level output specification? And how are we going to afford to do all of that over the coming years? So the first thing we've done to help maintenance is we've actually devolved gauging. So before, well, this time last year, I had a team of 16 gauging engineers, and loosely based around the country. So I had a team in York, I had a team in London, and a team in Birmingham. The York team served Scotland, but since devolution, Scotland has now got its own gauging teams working within the route, and that is a real boost to the TMEs, the section managers, the technical officers that maintain the railway in and around Scotland. So there's true expertise within the route and the region now, and that is something that I think is a real bonus, and will help us help the maintenance fraternity turn around their fortunes, as it were. We're also introducing lots of training material. So it's everything from surveying methods through to basic gauging principles. The fundamental part of gauging is data quality, and it's how we manage our data quality in the routes and regions. And then the top tier of work is how do we manage the grey. Lots of gauging is essentially go no go in its makeup, but in particular when you start introducing new trains, there is no particular right answer, and it's the art of managing the grey, and that's what we attempt to train in the level A and tier 1 and 2 training materials that we provide there. But it's about upskilling the workforce, understanding exactly what they need to do as maintainers to maintain the gauge for the network. We're also refreshing the standards. 3201 and 3203 are getting a bit old, getting a bit tired. Certainly, some of the technology in there is very much outdated, and of course the standard isn't risk-based in its makeup, and it doesn't strictly relate the risks back to the mitigations, and this new standard that we're refreshing does exactly that. It also removes the mandated use of datum plates. The datum plates remain a useful tool in the armory of the maintainer, and indeed for managed track position. However, in some cases, an automated methodology is much preferred, and we're looking to introduce that. So this is currently being trialed in Bedford and Newcastle, and should be released in the next in the June standards update. So in general, with maintenance, I believe we measure far too often. So we have far too many boots on ballast, measuring and remeasuring datum plates and platforms and anomalies. And what we need to do is automate that process and allow those highly skilled technicians and senior technical officers and principal technical officers to allow them to undertake designs and actually fix and mitigate the issues that they find. I'm horrified to say that in maintenance tamps right now, less than 5% of maintenance tamps are designed, and that is not a good situation for track geometry, for tamper utilization, or any situation regarding those tampers. It certainly doesn't maintain gauge adequately, and what we need to get to is turn that around 100% and have 5% of tamps are not designed, and that's where we need to be, and that's how maintainers or the maintenance community will be able to contribute and do their part for that triumvirate of looking after our gauge capability. So that in a nutshell is some of what we're doing to help maintenance do their bit. The next question in there was how are we going to achieve that go anywhere gauge that the HLOS document sets out and is looking for Scotland to achieve. First thing first, we need to understand that there is a perception of conservatism with engaging, and some of that is for good reason. A standard statement that you get in the gauging community is this location's been running with fouls for a number of years, yet nothing's collided, and that's absolutely true. But sometimes that is just a perception of conservatism rather than the actual case. So it could be that the original model was overly conservative. So as I said, some of the older trains that have got rights to travel on various routes in Scotland were based on some older modelling techniques, and some of those are quite conservative. And in general, not exclusively, but in general, over the last 25 years, models have got more and more sophisticated and more accurate and less conservative. So having a foul to something that is 40 years old and been running for a number of years in that foul condition, it does tell you that it's a good chance that the model itself is incorrect. There's very little incentive for that model to be updated because the owner, the vehicle owner, will nearly always have to pay for that, and they've already got route acceptance. So why do they need to update that model? I'm looking to challenge some of that, and I'll talk about that in a second. There is a lot of uncertainty about infrastructure movement and track movement. So the maximum track movement tolerance is applied to that gauge. So it may appear as foul, but it may have actually moved in the other direction altogether, or may not have moved at all. And so as a calculated foul, it doesn't necessarily mean that the track will have migrated to the full extent that we've given it in its allowances in calculating that gauge. So there is some uncertainty about infrastructure and indeed track movement. And then there's data quality. So data quality is what everything is based on, and we can show a foul, but in reality, the track has moved away, or there's vegetation there, and essentially there it could be an anomalous foul. And vehicles are notoriously complex, and it may be that that particular operating state has never been achieved. So there are certain train fleets out there that have never had they've never had an airbag failure, for instance. So they've never experienced that deflated condition, and therefore, you know, it may be that it's passing a location that is technically foul, but it's foul in a deflated occurrence, and it's never seen that occurrence. And crucially, gauging measurement systems are inaccurate, or certainly some of the ones that we had available to us. So some of these older surveying methods suffer from repeatability and reproducibility failures, and additive values applied on those outputs. So where you combine the tolerances of cant, the tolerances of curvature, and the tolerances of three-dimensional location. Additionally, they add up to quite an inaccurate system, and that's something else that we're looking to fix. But overall, there's a perceived level of conservatism, some of which is definitely correct, but some of which is a little bit dangerous to assume that there is that level of conservatism inherent. So, what are we doing to fix some of that conservatism? So the first thing we're doing is introducing new gauging surveying techniques. So typically, current surveying techniques have tolerances in the region of plus or minus 15 millimeters, and we can challenge that and improve that on a number of fronts. So we're very much moving to a 3D point cloud surveying system. So Ryla is something that's fairly well known at the moment, but there are a number of platforms that are capable of doing the very same thing as Ryla, and producing 3D point cloud surveying, very accurate systems on high speed after a number of runs up and down the track. They build up a point cloud that is very, very good and able to give a very good surveying accuracy for gauging. We're currently running an SBRI, which is a competition, a small business research initiative, as it were, and it's about taking those 3D point cloud surveying systems that we're in the process of approving, new ones coming on every month. But it's about taking that data and finding partners that can take that 3D point cloud data and through feature extraction, so i.e. it can look at the data and see that is a sign, and see that is the position of the railway. It can measure the 6 foots, it can measure the 10 foots, it can measure, it can detect that is a platform, and automatically produce gauging files that for easy entry into the NGD. So not only are we creating or approving new surveying techniques for gauging, but we're also taking that data and processing it, meaning there's less boots on ballast, allowing those technicians to take that data and do designs upon it, rather than going out on a night and with a platform gauge and measuring platforms, which is not good use of some of our brightest and upcoming stars, in my opinion. The next piece of work, just that was just talking about the benefits of some of those new gauging techniques. Sorry, and essentially the business readiness for a lot of this is really quite high, and the industry benefits are really high. It's there is a cost to implementation, but I'll come on to that later on. I think we can challenge that quite a bit. But in all, new surveying techniques are pretty much an all-round win, and they take away from that conservatism, because the more accurate we can make those surveying readings, the less those tolerances mount up, and the more locations that train can go without necessarily shrinking in size or you having to change the infrastructure. So improving the surveying techniques and improving those tolerances will allow that HLOS challenge some light. So going on to that, these are some of the tolerances that you see when you're building up the model for gauging. The first one in here is about vehicle dynamics. So as I alluded to earlier, vehicle models have improved over time, and it's pretty much to do with computing power. So as computers have got more and more powerful, the models that are able to calculate and predict the vehicle suspension and vehicle movement with the track geometry become more and more accurate, and that is something we're working with the RSSB with right now to improve those vehicle models. I spoke earlier about legacy vehicles, and there's not really an incentive once someone has got their vehicle onto a piece of infrastructure, so they've got their statement of compatibility. There's not much incentive for them to improve or make their vehicle model any more accurate. On that note, we are making those. We're in the process, like I say, with the RSSB to improve those vehicle models, and we are looking to update on the industry's behalf the legacy fleet. So where we know that a vehicle is a vehicle models that it was introduced with is overly conservative, we're looking to update that model with a new model and publish that, and make once again the models more accurate, thus allowing more vehicles to go to more places, and once again a step towards the HLOS agenda that the Scottish Government has put towards Network Rail. The next unknown is around the track fixity. So as stated earlier, we don't really understand how the track moves in certain locations, and how much it's likely to move in one location as opposed to another location. What we've undertaken is to use big data. So we currently collect terabytes and terabytes of data, geometry data on the network through our yellow fleet. We also collect gauging data up and down, and also there are certain fields that are useful to us on the UT ultrasonic testing train and such. So what we end up with is a huge amount of data, and we've set up a doctorate with Birmingham University to look at that big data and make some predictions about what every 2 or 5 meter section of track, how it's likely to move over time with that big data. So we're looking to predict the level of movement at any one location, and if we can do that, and it's a big if, but saying that, even if we can categorically predict that it's going only in one direction, we have halved the amount of tolerances that we need to put onto that vehicle on that one side. So oh, what have I done there? Oh, sorry, there you go. So we even if you, as I say, even if we only narrow it down to it's likely the track in that location is more likely to move towards the CES, we can halve the actual numbers that we put into those calculations to work out that vehicle's gauge in that location. And thirdly, new gauging techniques will reduce the tolerances that we need to put on the outside of any structure to say that that particular platform is gauged to this tolerance, and if we can reduce that tolerance any, then that will mean that we're once again more accurate and more able to say that that is indeed not a foul. It is actually a clear running vehicle, or indeed if it's a question of wood for the trees, where if we reduce the number of fouls massively, we can also see the wood for the trees and know exactly which locations we need to target in the future. And these are some of the benefits and around vehicle dynamics. As you can see, the business readiness is actually probably a bit better than medium now, because I wrote this about 6 months ago, and we're pretty much with RSSB ready to release the new models. But it's got high benefits for Network Rail and the industry in particular. Defined track fixity, business readiness is really low. As I said, it's a research and development piece at the moment. There might be some disrupting technology that I'll come on to later that might be able to push that along a bit further and a bit quicker. But at the moment, the business readiness is quite low. However, if we do get it right, the benefits to Network Rail in the industry are really quite high. And then the third piece, so all of those pieces there were about better accuracy. So they were better accuracy of the model, better accuracy of the track movement tolerances, and better accuracy in measuring the infrastructure. The third part is about using a different methodology to represent the tolerances within the system. So traditionally, gauging has used additive values. So this tolerance is added to this tolerance is added to this tolerance, and statistically, that's very rarely achieved. What we're looking to introduce, and we've trialed it in Scotland on the Glasgow to Mallaig route, is and looked at the feasibility and the money it would save. So what we're doing is coming up with a different gauging methodology that is probabilistic in nature, and that is really looking to deliver dividends. So on the one hand, we got the challenge out there that we need to have a go anywhere gauge. So from one side, we're making the vehicles more accurate, making the surveying more accurate, and the movement more accurate. And then on the next stage, from the other way, we're making the envelope of the vehicle slightly smaller, because we're representing that movement in a statistical model that rather than an additive model, and that is more realistic and more real life, and it's about balancing Network Rail's risk appetite to Network Rail's input. So the business readiness of that is really quite high, as I said. It's been trialed already. Network Rail benefits are strangely very low, because what they will help is the introduction of new vehicles, or the cascading of vehicles. So the industry benefit is very high, but as it's not actually making any extra room on the network, it does transfer some of that risk to Network Rail, and because we are essentially squeezing quartz into pipe pots to a certain point, the sustainability and is less, and therefore potentially the cost to Network Rail of maintaining those new gauges. So those parts there make up alternative means of gauging program, and they come into they form part of our gauging technology roadmap. On top of that, there's a number of other improvements that we're delivering to maintenance. So we're delivering a new track clearance measurement system, which is cloud-based, and it allows the TMEs and their technical officers to really drill into all aspects of their gauge capability on the network, and look and see where their real issues are, and in a risk-based manner rank them, so they understand where they need to do work and where they do not need to do work. We're looking to make that a probabilistic piece of work in the not too distant future to really up the ante on that. We're also looking at improving gauging analysis, making that faster and faster to take into account more of the higher density data that we're getting. Slows down the process, so we're looking for better gauging analysis software to counter that. We're also looking for concepts in handback and also self-service to a certain extent, so our freight customers and charter customers can actually request and get pretty much instant answers on their gauge capability for certain vehicles, and that's something that the customer is really very much looking for, and it's now with new computing systems very much within reach. So I spoke earlier about the third big challenge, which is COVID-19, and how are we going to afford all this. We've got a technology roadmap here that some of these things are in flight. However, I suspect I'll be asked very shortly to cut back my research and development as part and parcel of Network Rail being asked to cut back on maintenance, cut back on renewals, and cut back on various aspects of maintaining and keeping the network going. So what we're looking for is essentially some so back to these challenges, essentially is looking for something that could even disrupt the system, as it were. So there's a number of disruptors out there. Amazon have completely disrupted the high street, and Netflix has disrupted your television screen, and Uber has disrupted your black taxis in London. What we're looking for is a way of possibly disrupting gauging, and in truth, my personal opinion is that 3D point cloud is surveys, and very frequent surveys are probably that game changer. So there's the opportunity in the future to refresh or actually survey the entire network to probably a 2-monthly basis, and that would offset would cost an awful lot of money to undertake, but the costs for that we spend on surveying on manual basis are massive, and could more than pay for that. And the spin-offs of being able to treat the whole railway system as indeed that, a system, being able to turn around maintenance. So instead of sending people out to do some platform gauging and the like, they will be able to do some proper design work based on the 3D point cloud data they've got, and actually utilize their tampers and maintain the gauge. In the long term, you would look to introduce a managed track position over the entire network, if we could do that, and treat the whole railway as a system. So incorporating the track, the overhead line, the third rail, and all of the infrastructure that supports it and surrounds it, and treat the whole thing as a system. So in essence, I lead the track. I lead the gauging team within the technical authority. If we could get that disruptor right, I would in fact make myself redundant, and because there would be no requirement for a gauging discipline at that point. I'm probably being a bit facetious, because you're always going to be introducing new vehicles and doing things with new vehicles coming onto the network. But in essence, if we could get to a point where we had almost real-time data with surveying data for the whole of the network, we would in fact close gauging as a system pretty much altogether. So that's where I wanted to end it today. And make myself redundant, as it were. It's over to you, Russell, and questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rob. That was excellent. You'll probably notice we're now up to 46 in numbers wise, so it's been a very popular presentation tonight.
Good to hear.
We've got quite a few questions as well, so it's looking good.
You'll have to tell me how to turn off this presentation without me bugging out, because last time I turned off, we had a little test run a week or so ago, didn't we?
Yeah, if you hover down the bottom of the screen, and then you'll see the 4 dots, and there should be a screen one on the third in, and if you press that one, I think that one should take you off the share screen, I believe. Just at the very bottom of the screen.
No, it's not seeing anything at the bottom of the screen at the moment, so I'll just move things around. Is it probably this? Or are you able to get control?
I'm not too sure. Give me a little second to see if I can.
Yeah, I'm struggling, and I don't want to do the same as I did last time, which was.
Give me a little second, and.
Russell, I think you can change presenter. So if you go to the screen icon.
Aha, have I done it?
Yeah, perfect. Done it.
Yep, I've done it. Yep. Great.
Thanks, Tom. Yep. Excellent. Okay, so we have quite a few questions. If you've not, if you still want to ask a question and you've not put it into the chat forum yet, just type it in there and we'll run through. I'll run through the questions. If I've misinterpreted the question, or indeed Rob's answer, you want to add something else, you should be able to unmute yourself, the person who's asking the question, just in case there's any sort of follow-up. But we'll generally keep all the rest of the mics on mute just now, please, and that'll keep it the sound down. So the first question, Rob, I don't know if you can see the questions as well in the chat forum.
I'm trying to find it at the moment, but if you carry on, right. Yes.
Yeah, there's a speech bubble at the top right. Yeah, so the first one is from Tino Collias asking, will there be a stage where we get the route cleared vehicles from a query instead of reading through the sectional appendix manually, i.e. to input into clear route And I think indeed there was a little bit of feedback from one of the attendees, Gareth Holt, further down, a little bit of dialogue there about approaching the gauging engineer. But I think Tino's query was about an automated process. You know, if there was any.
Certainly that's on our technology roadmap, and that's where we want to get for certainly for charters initially, and we're running that for the first time, a sort of a cut down version of that. We're running that for the first time this year, so we're hoping, well, we are providing the entire charter fleet, or certainly 95% of the charter fleet, because a number of them don't go out on the main line. So a good 95% of the charter fleet, we're providing national certificates to, and essentially that's going to be provided to those are going to be provided to the charter operators, so they can see in advance before they put a request in. They can see in advance before they put a request in that their vehicle is likely to have issues in that location, or indeed it's clear. And it gives twofold. It gives the charter operator a clear view of what they want to, or you know, what's available to them with no hassle whatsoever. And it also gives them the opportunity, especially if it's a good way off, to challenge Network Rail and say, this location has got a prohibit on it for some reason or other. Can you look to see what, you know, is that reasonable for us to request to go there? You know, is it going to be prohibitive, you know, cost-wise, or is it something that you could do quite easily to allow movement there? So that's the first stage. We're doing that for charters this year. We've got it on the roadmap that we want to expand that to freight in the not too distant future. So various freight combinations, and basically have a query or a request, so the customer can get that data as and when they want it.
Brilliant. All that, excellent, Rob. All that answers your question, Tino. If there's anything else, just come on just now, or we can move on to the next question. Next question is from Louise Shaw, and Louise asks, Network Rail is responsible for compiling an infrastructure register stating the infrastructure's capability, which should be maintained, not allowed to drift to less than the stated capability. What is the justification for the drift? I'm not too sure if you give a justification. You certainly spoke a lot tonight about, you've identified a lot of the issues, I think, and that's where you're putting the time and effort to go in there. But any thoughts at all?
Yes. So some of that is a slight misnomer. So some of those locations probably never had that capability in the first place. So they, as I think I stated in the presentation, some of those locations may have got it through grandfather rights. They may have got it through old models that were inaccurate, because it goes both ways. They were inaccurate conservative, and some were inaccurate being overly generous. So there is definitely a part of the conundrum is that we have a lot of historic locations that appear to have, on the face of it, drifted, but in truth they probably never had that in the first place. And the second part is where we have allowed it to drift over time, and there certainly are some locations where that's definitely occurred, and we've all seen that location on a curve where the tracks managed to migrate over drainage catch pits and such, and there's, you know, it's definitely moved over time and not been put back. And part of that is about we possibly haven't given the engineers the right tools, and some of that is because the right tools just weren't available, but we haven't given them the right tools to do the job and actually maintain that. And like I say, with new technology, I think that will be more and more apparent that we will have the right tools and we will be able to address those issues. It's no point pretending that we've never let anything drift, because that's just not the case. But in essence, what I started the conversation or the presentation about is we do need a little bit more. We do need more contribution from the maintainer, and not relying upon train introducers and renewals to maintain, and which is where I think we maintain our gauge. Really, that's where the biggest changes are done. That's how we largely maintain our stated capability and stated gauge. But like I say, in some instances, it wasn't there in the first place.
Okay, thanks, Rob. I hope that answers your question, Louise. The next one was from Gareth Holt, and I think it was just a reply back to Tino about the approach, and Gareth was talking about in the Wales and Western, the kind of the gauging matrix, etc., and then always the NESA database that's available as well. So it was a response rather than a question, I think. The next question was from Tom Wilson about slide 5, and regarding the Scottish Government's H-loss, often referred to as Scottish gauge type of thing. It was a question, but it's just a comparison, I think.
Scottish gauge, it's not really a Scottish gauge. It's more or less a compendium of vehicles that we worked with ScotRail and indeed Transport Scotland to say, interpret the H-loss to say, this is probably the compendium that we'd ever wish to run on this particular line, and nominally we've called that the Scottish gauge. It's not truly a gauge, but it's as good as that. Yeah, it's really what it is a compendium of vehicles that we, working with the train operator, would expect to be passed upon or expect within that H-loss statement to be able to use that particular piece of line.
Okay, brilliant. The next couple, I think, again, were a bit of commentary between Tino and Gareth regarding the spreadsheets, and indeed we spoke about that, about a newer system or an automated system that's available kind of for use. So I think we've probably covered most of that. If Tino or Gareth have got any other items they wanted to raise on that one.
So the very good news about that is the spreadsheets that I think they're talking about. We are about to be changed. We've got some sort of beta testers utilising the new system right now, and it will be rolled out to the whole of the track fraternity not too distant future. So I would like to think that you won't be working off spreadsheets for very much longer for clearances. It's been an interim position that's it's not been ideal, but it was been an interim position that we had to go through, a little bit of pain that we needed to go through.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Next question by Tom Wilson about the assessment software, and just looking at any issues, if there's a continual production of files which aren't actually proven as files, if that affects the credibility of the software, if we have that issue at all.
In a lot of ways, I don't think it destroys the credibility of the software. It more often than not destroys the credibility of the data, and that probably that probably necessitates that disruptor change, or that big step change in our surveying capabilities that I'm talking about, or that I talked about at the end. So I don't think it necessarily destroys the credibility of the software at all, because it's producing the right answers. it's probably the our data that is wanting, and as I say, we're looking to improve our data markedly in the next couple of years.
Okay. The next one was from Gareth Holt, and he was asking if there's an aspiration for a similar one-size-fits-all gauge outside of Scotland. If so, I'm assuming we'd move to like W10, W12 gauges to abnormal that would have severely restricted movement.
So there's nothing in the pipeline to my knowledge just yet. However, I'll be exceptionally surprised if the Department of Transport aren't watching very keenly on what's happening with Transport Scotland and their HLOS challenge statement. So no, there isn't anything right now, but I wouldn't bet on it not being the case in the not too distant future.
Okay, thanks. Another question with Tom Wilson about the assessment process using Clear Route 2, and I think you touched upon this a little bit through the process and being very conservative type of thing. And if it is, what could be done to improve it to be more realistic? I think you probably covered most of that from what you've.
I think so. Yeah. So yes, it's about improving our gauging tolerances. It's about improving our understanding of infrastructure and track movement, and it's about improving our vehicle models. And on top of that, there's the opportunity to use probabilistic versions of Clear Route 2 or PHX or etc. in the not too distant future.
Sure, thanks. Another quick question by Tom Wilson about track fixity in other parts of the world. For an example, in Queensland, Australia, and the track fixities have been increased by changing the track form from ballasted to precast modular slab track. Tom's asking if this could be a new strategy adopted going forward as track and the platforms come up for renewal. Any thoughts on that at all, Rob?
So I would welcome that 100%, but it's always a cost benefit analysis, and you as a previous renewals engineer, you'd probably be horrified that half of your budget went on slab track.
The gauging engineer's dream, isn't it? You know,
yes.
To a platform.
So yeah, it's a cost benefit relationship that you need to get right as an asset manager.
Absolutely, yeah. Time and a place, I think, for each, absolutely. Question by Christopher Alexander regarding maintenance tamps that aren't designed. Does or must anyone reach out to your group about curves before raising high rails, passing trains, platforms, tunnels, etc. for calculations based on the last known gauging? Same question for tilting wagons, depending on panel size, if it's a concern.
Certainly, that used to when I had the frontline team, as it were, in the centre, that used to occur, and I'd like to think that still occurs now. Now the teams are out based. So the answer is absolutely, it should be yes, and I'd like to believe it absolutely is yes. And as a engineer in the technical authority, that's certainly going to become part of my assurance regime to make sure that is the case in the future.
Okay, another question from Lee Shaw on track fixity again, about the benefits of track fixity. Have they been monetised to enable value for money decisions on UGMS equipment on trains? Any thoughts on that?
I think I might have to come back to Louise on that one, because I'm sure there is some research on that, but I'm not too up on it. It's got to be said.
Yeah. Okay. No problem at all. If Louise, I can get Rob's details to you after. We can speak after, and follow up anything that we need to do that with. That's no problem.
Yes, please.
Question from Andy Batters, who asks maybe more of an operational question about on-track machines not being included in the sectional appendix. Gauging restrictions are documented on the gauging certificate and summary of compatibility. In real time, if an OTMM is diverted on an alternative route in the middle of the night, how are the restriction and gauging certificates and the SOC communicated to signal boxes or control centres? This is especially relevant to non-self-propelled loco-hauled plant, where the loco drive may be unaware of the exact consist of the train.
Yeah. So yes, this is a problem, and if it doesn't go where it's supposed to go, and I see Mark, my number 2, has answered that to a certain extent as well. But if it's diverted somewhere that's not planned, then there's a lot more than just gauging that it needs to that needs to write, and we have had trains stuck in various locations because we've had to do the original route is incapable of doing for some reason or other. Timings just don't work out, etc., and they end up getting stuck because axle weights or gauging or whatever stops them from being able to travel. So I think we've had a milling train stuck up in Scotland for a couple of weeks just recently for something very similar.
Right.
But the truth is that you could possibly put them into the sectional appendix, but they're not currently. It's something I probably need to have a look at. But usually they're planned moves.
I'm just wondering if my Scottish colleagues just wanted to keep a hold of the milling train for an extra few weeks to get some extra shifts.
That's no bad thing, is it?
Absolutely.
It's a good machine.
So I think Mark Ward's commenting was just about that same thing about checking compatibility and EMC axle weights, etc. So it's part of the jigsaw.
Yeah, I should get Mark on here to answer these questions because he knows more about it than I do.
No problem. Another question by Louise Shaw and regarding new platform positions should facilitate level boarding in the future. Is there an established policy about the height and offset to facilitate migration? Any thoughts on that, Rob?
It's something that's been hard thought about at RSSB, but right now it's the standard platform position is the standard platform position. I know for HS2 it's likely to be level platform for the whole of the HS2 network, and then regular stepping for when it comes onto the classic network, as it were, or the existing network. So I think it's likely to be a little bit horses for courses for now and the medium term. I guess the issue is that there'd be such a massive change to change everything, and there's no way you could change everything overnight. So it's something the RSSB are wrestling with, but right now there's no move towards level boarding at this point.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Question from Mike James. You made the introduction of new vehicles sound like an exercise in trying to squeeze quartz into pint pots, but in the majority of cases for OTMM and even freight wagons, manufacturers are happy to reproduce what was previously produced. So why is a machine with the same dimensions, stroke suspensions introduced today not permitted where an identical machine has been allowed without fill for years? So I don't know if you spoke about grandfather rights, etc. I don't know if that is part of the equation, Rob, or if
it certainly is. Yeah. So as we know, new things, you can't just close your eyes to it and pretend you didn't see it, and therefore, in my opinion, you have to treat everything with all the knowledge that you have at hand right now, and that's very much the reason why. Also, on top of that, it's very seldom that certainly OTMs, technology is moving on all the time. It's very seldom that an OTM, even within the same production run, there's many variations and many differences between one and the other. So we generally treat them vehicle by vehicle.
Okay, thank you. The next one is just a comment for Gareth, just thanking you for the presentation tonight. A question from Tom Wilson: would D-Gauge RIFT assessment software be the game changer that you're looking for? Question mark. So I've heard of kind of D-Gauge before, and they use a kind of different system. Has that been looked at all?
So I'm not au fait with RIFT assessment software unless I just don't know the acronym. So it could be, it might not be. I couldn't tell you. We do work with D-Gauge a lot, and they alongside the likes of Balfour Beatty, the likes of S&C Lavalin. There's some fantastic gauging specialists out there. D-Gauge are clearly one of those, but I don't know what RIFT assessment software is. So something I'll note down, and I'll go asking what they're up to next time I meet with them.
Okay, brilliant. A question by Graham Hutchison. With the introduction of 3D point clouds and higher accuracy of data, is there a risk that we lose out by retrofitting this data to SEO formats, etc.?
So yes, so it's a means to an end at the moment. So our database is how we've agreed to share our data with the industry is in standard SE0, SE X's, XE whatever formats, and so yes, we could we will lose out in the short term, but that is how the current softwares out there work. We will in time move over to probably true point cloud systems or rastered systems based on the 3D point clouds in time. But this is a retrofit to the current software that's out there. So what we don't want to do is say, oh, we've moved over to 3D point cloud. There's no gauging software out there that can handle it right now in a speedy fashion. So yes, we know it's going to move forward at some point in the future, but just the time isn't quite right just yet.
Okay, just a thank you from Christopher Alexander as well. A comment from Bridget Akoff saying the standard platform position remains 915/730 as raising platforms makes too many other problems. Lowering train floors is a better solution. I was certainly aware of the RSSB for quite some time. I've been attempting to kind of look at the 915/730 and doing a lot of modelling, and it's been very difficult to get something that works, that improves. So and indeed Mark Ward goes on to state that there's an RSSB research paper T610 that investigated the changes recommended for platform height as well. So some I'm probably sure you're well aware of that, but maybe people on the call like myself might be interested to have a kind of look at the T610 and just get a bit more information on what's been researched to date, etc. Question from Louise Shaw: will the new point cloud approach permit 3D object recognition? If not, would we be better off with 3D? Any thoughts on that at all?
That's exactly what we're doing. A combination of the 3D point cloud and forward-facing cameras. We're identifying objects through machine learning and actually recognizing that is in fact a tunnel portal, that is a signal, and that is a platform, and then attributing it as such.
Okay. Brilliant. We've got one more comment, so just before we close up, if there's any other final questions of that, please pop them into the chat forum quickly before we finish. But the last one, from Bridget again. Thanks, Bridget. And again, a statement just talking about the platform height was also reviewed in developing the PTI, the platform train interface strategy as well.
Absolutely.
So it's a big old chestnut, that, isn't it? It's, between the two, the vehicle and the infrastructure as well.
Absolutely. If you were designing it, if you were designing the whole system from new, you would be difficult enough. But with a historic railway, it's not an impossible conundrum. So
sure.
sticking with what we've got is probably or almost certainly the best answer.
Okay, and a final one from Gashi's Laddie. Datum plates, from a cost benefit perspective, do they provide a credible improvement in safety of the line? Any thought? I know you spoke earlier about datum plates and that, Rob.
So datum plates were introduced to fix a specific problem. I don't believe that they've fixed the problem that they were asked to remedy. And what we're looking at is changes in the future, is changes in clearances, upper and lower, to give us indications of change rather than datum plates. Multiple benefits to that are that firstly, there's less boots on ballast, because if we are able to automate this data collection, we may not be able to quite so easily automate datum plate surveys as actual platform surveys and actual locations of pieces of infrastructure, but also it will more clearly give us an indication of the changes of the clearances. And datum plates themselves, if I've often asked if it's moved 10 millimeters, what does that tell you? And in truth, it's not told you a great deal, and because it's not directly related to clearances. It's just a number that's changed. And as a TME, I do believe that data plates the data is collected in an awful lot of cases, but there's not. I don't believe an awful lot is done with that information. It's not that often that it's rectified on the basis of a datum plate being movement. And what we need to do is change that piece and change that game, as it were.
Okay, excellent, Rob. Just before we finish tonight, if anyone's had a question that they were unable to use the chat forum on, now's the chance to unmute yourself and ask Rob if there was any live questions at all. I'll just give it a minute in case anyone had a final kind of burning question. You may get off here, Rob, Okay, it sounds like everybody's that was a really good, healthy session with the questions as well. And Rob, thank you very much for an excellent presentation.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah.
No problem at all. You started off by saying there was it seemed very simple, only 3 things engaging, and I think we've discovered tonight that if anyone didn't know that much about gauging, that it's actually an extremely complicated subject, and the interfaces are massive and very important as well. So you gave a very straightforward and simple approach to that, and the principles of that. The Go Anywhere gauge, the aspiration from Scotland and the HLOS, it was specific to the title and etc. and what we've done in Scotland. And indeed, I don't think anyone can have a presentation on railways just now without mentioning the impact of COVID and how that's going to transform the industry moving forward for the future. So it's good to see that's considered as well. Indeed, the devolved gauging team as well that's been in Scotland a good way forward, and I've heard that's been very successful as well, so that's really good from a Scottish point of view as well, and throughout the rest of the regions. The perceived level of conservatism, a really good explanation of that, and indeed, yeah, as you said, the people have their own ideas of what is there, what should be there, etc. But trying to actually understand that allows you to tackle that has been a big step forward. The 3D point clouds as well we spoke about, and the progression we're getting at. The science is moving very quickly just now. We've seen that in the recent presentations on rail surveying techniques and the speed that they can be done. And indeed, you talked about the processing capabilities of the machines now. It's moving forward very quickly, so that's good to see.
Absolutely.
And that leads on to the better understanding of vehicle dynamics, and indeed how that ties in with track fixity, along with the new surveying techniques, etc. And you sort of finished off with the roadmap. Yeah, everyone needs a roadmap now, so I had a roadmap for the future control.
Is that a date? I need a heat map now, apparently.
So, but that gives us a really good insight as to the direction we're moving into as well for the gauging and the wider interfaces with gauging. And finally, I liked your disruptor thought process as well about how do we make a step change. To be fair, it's probably the first PWI presentation that I've heard that makes a comparison with Amazon and Netflix, so I was very impressed with that, Rob. But is that kind of if you want to change something dramatically, you've got to think out the box, and I think that's what we've seen from your presentation tonight. There was very structured principles as well, but you're also thinking out the box. How do you change? How do you get that vast amount of data and use that to the benefit, for moving forward? So overall, I think we had about 46 on the call during that, so that just demonstrates the level of interest in the industry engaging as a technique, and for yourself as well, Rob, for taking your time out to give us an excellent presentation tonight. So I would ask the audience if you're able to unmute yourself to show our virtual appreciation to Rob tonight. Thanks very much, Rob, for your time tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant, Rob. Thank you. Just to sum up before we leave tonight, I'd like to thank everyone for coming along tonight, for members and guests. It's been good to see another healthy turnout tonight. And just a quick reminder of next month's Edinburgh meeting is on Wednesday the 7th of April. And it's Tom Wilson from WSP, and indeed the PWI Vice President, who is providing a presentation on track design, the basics. So look forward to seeing everyone next month as well, if you're able to come along. And we will have a good night and have a safe journey home if you're not home already. So thanks very much, and thanks again, Rob, and I'll see everyone next month. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
That was brilliant, Rob.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
That was great, Rob. Aye. Cheers. I'll move you in the screen down here because I'll end up getting speaking to someone that's not there. Really.
I'll get used to.
That's it.
I'll get used to the technology at some point. But,
I know. No, that was brilliant, Rob. That was brilliant. Yeah, it was. I know it was the whole kind of train platform interface thing is massive, and we do some kind of PRM stuff as well about stepping distances and the risks, looking at mind the gap and mind the step and everything like that, and it is a big old subject, isn't it? And
without
I think
doubt,
it was Yeah, and that whole thing. I'm sure that I remember on a quick flick through that RSSB presentation, and it was a lot of it was the gap in particular was a bigger concern rather than the step. But then I'm sure that was the RSSB presentation where they showed a lady who was a guard, and she was reasonably small stature, this huge stepping distance, vertical stepping distance, absolutely unbelievable, and
where was that? Russell, that was that the East Coast? Not around about Arbroath or around about Dundee or somewhere around about there, was it not?
No, I thought it was actually down south. The worst one I've been aware of ever was on the Cathcart Circle, and it was massive. Yeah, it was absolutely. You made an actual concerted effort to step up onto this, and you're thinking to say, well, hold on a second here. What about a woman with a kid? What about an elderly person? What about someone that's just reduced mobility or something? How on earth do you get them up into that vehicle?
Yeah.
But there was an IMechE presentation. I think it's on YouTube now. It was a month or two ago, and that was about the new rolling stock. I'm just trying to remember. It was a 700 series or something on the Merseyrail stuff, and they had that same kind of interface. So I think as a talk, their challenge was we want to get level, platform rail interface. But they've done that through a mechanical kind of means. Through that, there's the step on the new rolling stock falls down effectively to make the train to bridge the gap, if you like. And they've done that, and it's got a sensor, so it works out how far the platform is. So they have a I don't think it's quite 915/730, but they've got a standard design for the platforms, and that train enables the interface, to be as close as possible, which is pretty good actually. So it might be that kind of balance between the two, the future.
I think there's a few technologies out there. There's what they've called kneeling trains, where the suspension basically leans it into the platform, and so you're more able to get closer to a level access, even if you're wheeling up. But so because there's lots of play in the suspension, and it's just about hydraulically just pulling that down and on one side and leaning into the platform is, as you say, a hydraulic footsteps and such, and so there's loads of innovations yet, but it's
I think
it's still a conundrum. There's so many different parties, aren't there?
Yeah, and the train technology now is unbelievable. So it can even work out if it's a crush loaded train now, or if it's empty or whatever, and how that kind of adapts to that kind of platform, etc. and everything. Quite a subject in itself. So I was glad to see Siobhan was on the call tonight. I thought she was going to give you some really awkward questions. So
I'll give her a ribbing or ask her why she didn't.
I think she would just be polite.
CPD.
I think she was just being polite, not to put you in a spot. There was a lot of good, healthy questions tonight, anyway, so that was excellent. So, just the job.
Excellent.
Well, have a great evening, Rob. Thank you very much again from behalf of myself and Mark and the PWI, and take care. And if there's anything I can do for you at all in the future, you know where we are. So, give us a shout anytime. And Robert, take it easy.
You've never let me down in the past, so.
No, certainly try not to.
Cheers. See you all.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you.
Cheers,
Cheers.
Rob.
Cheers.
Cheers all.